the night. I'll be honest,
quick.
I'm pretty surprised, Gio, at the choice of map. I wasn't anticipating we'd go back to a coastline yet for this team of MIBR after getting burnt here yesterday. MIBR coming in pretty strong. Ashban, off the rip.
I love it. It's spicy. That's like a real middle finger to Patoxy.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and he really showed up yesterday as well. MIBR are not having any of that.
Oh dear, oh dear. Black Dragon's just trying to drag it back, say, guys, come on, let's easy with the target bans. Let's just go for what we all know. We'll ban the mirror here. You guys ban the Valkyrie, you know, as per the script sort of thing. Thatcher is going to get removed. Okay, so Black Dragon said, don't worry, we'll ban the Valkyrie. You guys just ban the mirror, please. If this is a Jaeger ban, I don't know what.
Mate, I want this one to be something out there. Don't give me boring, MIBR.
What hurt them yesterday? I mean, everything hurt them yesterday, didn't it? Alamout hurt them. And it was a tough old game. Maybe a smoke. We saw a smoke ban earlier in the day. Going to be the Malusi. Okay. Makes sense. Very highly picked. Such a useful operator.
I mean, you know, looking at Black Dragon's stats from yesterday, it was Iron who mostly played Malusi. That said, he was also their lowest rated player from yesterday. So I doubt that's really a target ban, more so than it is to do with the fact that Malusi is very valuable on this map. Not only is she a great roamer, she can, you know, her aggression can really be utilized, but also because it's quite a small map, those Banshees just provide so much value because they can prevent a lot of space because you don't have much space to work with in the first place.
I guess you're kind of fortunate as well if there's an Ash ban to get rid of the Malusi, because those Banshees would have just become even more difficult to try and deal with when you're solely relying on, you know, Zephyrs or nades, or heaven forbid walking up to one and trying to melee it. So it kind of brings a little bit of balance to the universe in that regard. Hug's going to be wasting no time. Straight on that Lion pick. We saw Lion banned in our first visit to Coastline today, but it is going to be open and it is going to be chosen straight away here from Black Dragons. Unit on the Dokkaebi as well. Ooh, can you smell it, Gio?
Yeah, I can smell the SMG-12.
I was going to say the aggression, but we can smell an SMG-12 as well. That's maybe more guaranteed. But I feel like this speaks to quite an aggressive lineup here from Black Dragons.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lion and Dokkaebi together really send a signal. The only thing you need to add on to that really is the Jackal, right? To make the trifecta of just hunting people down. And Yuna playing on Dokkaebi yesterday did really well. In fact, he nearly clutched a round from Team Liquid when it was just him on his own with the Dokkaebi. Missed the very last kill, but he got 2. And it was really great as well. So Black Dragons are really broadcasting to us here what it is they want to be doing. So MIBR are going to have, a lot to deal with, I think. It's going to be quite heavy.
It is. There's certainly an aggressive lineup here from Black Dragons being brought. It's about how MIBR are initially able to respond to that. There could be a lack of information here on the side of MIBR. If we just look at what they're bringing, they've got some default cameras, sure, but they've not got a single bulletproof camera. They have, however, got some of the proximity alarms, so they're going to get indication, but they're not actually going to have anything to physically jump on and watch aside from defaults. Now, I think the survival rate of a default camera on Coastline is probably higher than any other map in the league, as these outside cameras in particular do seem to get forgotten by the attackers. But that isn't something to be relied on here.
Perhaps. Ooh, I was wondering if he's going to get aggressive on the window, but actually was just running to the other side. Also want to note that Reduct took a load of damage just earlier on. Hugs is going to hold on to the white window, but it'll be Lukid as the first casualty.
A horrible combination of a Lion Scan and a Dokkaebi call. Reduct finding some sort of solace next to his mute jammer just to instantly remove the call, and of course the effect of the Lion Scan. You can move in and around the radius of a mute jammer when you are Lion Scanned and you won't be pinged, but there is ping information coming out from Patoxy as he's got a drone on in the site. It isn't going to matter though, as Foles plays very aggressively onto that. Live finds his second on the round as Fouls is drastically low, as well as more disruption reigns on in. More calls, more E1Ds, and more things to pinch MIBR here.
Fleepox trying to hold onto that white window, but it'll be live to get the next kill with the nade onto Falls. Fleepox finally eradicates Hugs, leaving just 2 players of MIBR and 3 of Black Dragons. They've got 5 drones out and about, which should still provide them with decent information. Yuna going in for the plant. Pressure's on MIBR. Fleepox comes in with the first kill. Can he end the diffuser? Yeah, he can. Now he's going to have to be dealt with.
It's a full task for Ion here. Because what was looking really good for Black Dragons has just fallen apart. They weren't keeping hold of the flank. MIBR have been able to get the better of them. He's going to try and push on in, but he's announced himself in quite a big way there with a knock-knock onto that hookah door. The shotgun at close range is always going to be the victor in that situation. MIBR holding on there for round number 1 in what looked like a circumstance that wasn't favouring them for the majority.
Yeah, it's a strange one because I'll be honest, I think that Black Dragons could have coordinated more around the E1D and the Dokkaebi logic bombs as well. Usually if you want those to come in, that should be your option to all kind of move in together. It's not necessarily what we saw. We saw a couple of players try and aggress in, and those were often backwards and forwards in terms of what we saw in the kill feed. Nothing really decisive in the way of Black Dragons. If anything, that utility, that gadgetry, mostly just scared MIBR, I think, and, kind of affected some of their positioning. But as the round progressed, you could see that MIBR were less scared of it. They were less tenuous, less tentative, less concerned, and they were certainly happy to take the positions that they wanted to take and push up. We really saw that from Fleepox, the way that he was holding onto the white stairs. He knew that there wasn't really a threat from down below, so he didn't have to be too concerned. Once Hugsword was removed off of the white window, he could then move around into the site, retake Aqua, and take down not only the planter, but another guy as well. And that threw everything into turmoil for Black Dragons.
And that's been enough for Black Dragons to actually switch things up. They've said, well, the Lion did us no good there because of that rotation Fleepox was allowed to make. We need to bring some more solid flank watch, and they have done that in the form of a Nomad. We do have the Twitch poll on the screen right now. As we can see, this is probably the closest one we've had for a long time.
Yeah.
Not a lot in it there between these 2 teams. Black Dragons narrowly edging a margin with about 10%, but certainly not a lot in it at all.
Which would you have said?
I wouldn't have liked to sort of say for this one, because it just means so much to both teams. But if you're going to go with momentum, Black Dragons, they played yesterday, whereas MIBR, we've not seen them play since last Saturday.
MIBR played yesterday. They played against Team 1.
Sorry, that's NIP. My bad. MIBR...
NIP definitely aren't going to win this game. I can tell you that.
No, they're not going to win it. They're not in the poll even. No, I would have said Black Dragons just because of the performance yesterday.
Yeah. I think I agree. They did really well. Now, obviously, MIBR have started things off well with the first round, but they didn't get the first kill in this round. That went to Hugsword, who we did actually see show up a decent amount yesterday, especially the 3K that he got onto Liquid when they dropped in through the meeting hatch. Good times. One of the more fun replays that we got to see at the beginning of this game. Still, it's a little bit slow for now as Black Dragons try and assess their options for this next part of the push. The site is over in Kitchen, but it looks like they're going to go for a Sunrise push rather than anything too vertical. Luke's going to be affected by the air jabs that will shove him back as he tries to hold on to above Sunrise in Hookah.
I'm not sure if that was intentional or not from Luca, as he seemed pretty happy to be flung around there like a ragdoll. Perhaps he's going to grab a kill over onto Nomad, but I believe that the majority, if not all of those air jabs will now be placed. There's vertical play coming in from Black Dragons now, as a C4 is going to connect from Fleepox. Great stuff there, holding that vertical. It just puts even more pressure on Ion and Patoxy. Ion, he's going to be outside blue bar, but he's getting shot from just about every conceivable angle right now. There's so much open down there in terms of Kitchen. He's not really got any safe haven to hide in. Instead, just going to play the door. We do have players on the side of MIBR that are looking to get aggressive onto him, and that player is going to be Raps. Toxie all alone upstairs for Leapox with the ears. He's going to hear that coming a mile away due to all that flooring being open. He's going to grab himself that last kill.
Not great when you move back to reload and suddenly step into a line of sight all the way from lobby, is it? You know, what I really want to call out is just how well Felipox has been playing. He's looked really good so far. He's been getting a ton of kills. I think it's also a testament to how flexible he can be as a player. When you look back at some of the main operators that he's played in past games, they've been very support heavy, but in this game, he's been leaning more into that kind of flex support type. And having a player who can be that flexible and really take on that flex role is so valuable, especially if he can be used in a number of different types of situations. And the ones that he's been put in this game so far against Black Dragons, he's definitely been turning out on top. So I'm going to be looking out to see how he does from here on out, if that continues on. One of the discussions that we had at the beginning of the game was going to Coastline. Is that going to benefit or hinder MIBR, knowing that they played on it yesterday and didn't really have a great game? Well, so far, all it's been doing is benefiting them. And that's why I kind of hypothesized that maybe they looked back on that game that they had against Team 1 and they could identify a lot of the problems that they made. Because one of the biggest things I have to say, Ollie, is that they look cleaner and more together in this game so far than what we saw from them yesterday, where it all looked a bit of a mess and at times disjointed, not always coordinated.
Yeah, without a doubt, MIBR have looked really good so far today. Felipox in particular has stepped up in quite a big way. He's had some really impactful kills. He's on at least 5 kills, to my knowledge, as we enter round number 3. Something needs to be done here on the side of Black Dragons. They're really going to double down on this sort of anti-aroma utility as they bring Jackal as well. Toxie, obviously with no Ash being available, he's forced to sort of expand his horizons, I guess, in terms of his picks on the attack. Jackal, not a bad substitute for an Ash, but of course you do have slightly different roles to fulfill. Namely in the fact that you don't have as much soft destruction as Ash has. You still have the shotgun, so it's still possible, but it's one of the slower shotguns in the game to effectively get soft walls and floors open with. You'd more likely be looking to use your Inox tracker and use smokes to great effect. Which he's going to be doing now as he narrowly dodges the C4 that was pre-placed downstairs inside of office.
Here another pre-placed C4. Most likely Redux, as he's the one playing down there in Sunrise. The fact that MIBR are actually... Oh, actually, it looks like he wants to drop it down. Maybe not. He's going to give up on that one. Usually, if you see a player trying to shoot around a C4, it's because they're trying to drop it down off the ceiling. Either way, he decided to commit to it, but it didn't catch anybody out. What I was going to say is you can tell how MIBR are trying to coordinate as they ping out their C4s to one another, as likely other players have information that they can provide about the whereabouts of the attackers so that they know when to set the C4s off. In this case, it's actually going to be Live who gets the next kill onto Falls. That's the smoke, and one of the big problems we had with him yesterday is when he was playing smoke, he'd oftentimes be lost early. And look at this, 2 kills coming in for Patoxie on the Jackal, showing up before Felipox gets 1 back onto Live.
Patoxie might have found his new main there as Yuna. He's going to be trying to confirm that plan. Felipox has to try and aggress on in now, but it is being covered very well indeed. Lukid using the Oryx to burst through the soft wall, but it's just too little too late. The plant has already gone down. It's going to be quite a tricky defuse from here, although with no hard destruction, these sauna walls have been left entirely reinforced aside from one panel. Lukid now going to be putting some pre-fire shots out. Does get the down over onto Ion. Confirms the second. He's going to have enough time to defuse this with plenty to spare, as it only takes 7.5 seconds to get the job done. What looked like a round that was going Black Dragon's way has been swung toward MIBR.
I think you can really tell that that Ash ban is affecting them purely because Patoxie does not look like he has been facilitated in the same way that we saw yesterday. That doesn't necessarily mean his teammates are outright doing things wrong, but clearly he doesn't have that option to be as aggressive and as strong an entry as we saw before. Looking at his stats from yesterday, he had a +6 KD and was the only player of Black Dragons who was averaging over 1 kill per round. He actually evened things out on the entry as he was 2-2 for entry, so a +0. Not the best entry KD on the team. Both Yuna and Live did better on that front. But the point still stands is that his aggression has been somewhat shut down. And the thing is, you can talk about how Jackal is still an operator that you can kind of pop off on and whatnot, but his gadgetry still has to be used in coordination with the others in a way that Ashe's doesn't necessarily. And that's not to say that Ashe's gadgetry shouldn't be used in coordination or can't be used in or anything like that. But you can play her a lot more independently, I think, than Jackal. When you're wanting to use the Inox, for example, on Jackal to track the footprints of other players, you really want to be using things like that at a time where the rest of your team are ready to receive that information and act on it. Whereas with Ashe, if you want to open a wall or you want to clear some utility, it doesn't really matter because that utility will remain cleared once you've done it. And so when the rest of your team are prepared to act on that, it's already been done.
There's maybe an argument to bring Iana or something like that as opposed to the Jackal and just say, okay, we're going to get rid of the Inox. We're not really going to try and play off that. The smoking at the last second to try and get the plant off, that isn't really working either. Bring the Iana, have essentially a load of drones in the form of your clone, and you get 2 frag grenades. Now that to me would be maybe a better fit at the moment. Patoxy's still capable of getting the kills done, but if he's then being relied on in the late stages for that sort of utility clear, then that's where we're sort of starting to really see it hurt in terms of being there to put the smokes down to try and cover that plant. So, Black Dragons certainly got some figuring out to do here. But the Ashban, arguably the least of the worries at this point, as they are 3 rounds down. Still yet to find any success here on this map. Leapok's looking to get aggressive. I think he's been droned out there. Now, the main difference between this round and round number 1 where we saw this site is that Hugs is actually playing on the Nomad this time. So, Lion being still brought by Yuna, but the difference, well, the main difference, should I say, being this Nomad. Opener there being found onto Leapox, who of course was the big thorn in the side of this Black Dragon side back in round number 1 with that 3k flank. That now can be locked off as Hugs gets himself in and will no doubt start to place down some of his utility.
Yeah, really struggled to get in through that white window back on round number 1. A nice kill from Reduct, a headshot onto Live. Very similar to the aggression the Black Dragons tried to show back in round 1 that got shut down. It is just continuing to do so.
Still utility needing to be baited out here as Reduct has still got some Toxic Babe canisters. Yuna with a swing over onto Raps. Just getting too aggressive there inside of Hookah Bar. Miles is still primed with those Toxic Babe canisters. Lukid on 90. Could be looking at a rotation. A C4 still in the hands of Reduct as well. Time continues to tick for Black Dragons though, as another Toxic Babe canister is going to get thrown on out. Reduct forced into a rotation here. Files is still holding by Sofas. Hugs seems to have infinite amount of flashbangs there outside of Hookah as he looks to push his way on in, but an aggressive swing isn't going to result in any success for Black Dragons. They find 2, but is it enough? Hugs is now left in the 1 versus 1. The diffuser cold in the site. He can choose now to recover it and will be able to get this plant down likely before Lukid gets his way on up there. Once again, we've spoken about the lack of information on the side of MIBR, and this time it's really hurt them. They didn't know that that plant was going down, and Hugs has been allowed to get himself all the way out onto the rappel. He can either choose to go upside down, but he's going to have to challenge onto it as Lukid looking like he's going to stick, but no, comes off at the last second for the engage. Hugs, the victor in that one. Black Dragons pick up their first round here on Coastline.
And they really needed a first round here on Coastline, as well as they're not looking like the same Black Dragons that we saw against Liquid yesterday. One of the things that I was actually wondering through part of that round is I would have liked to have seen Black Dragons apply more pressure over onto the hookah side of things. Maybe take control of VIP so that they can pressure into Billiards from the other side. The problem that we have seen both times that they've attacked onto this side is they come in through Aqua and then they kind of feed themselves into the meat grinder of the MIBR defense that's present in Billiards. What maybe would have been an idea is to bring a hard breacher who can open up the VIP wall, assuming that it was reinforced. If it wasn't reinforced, then all you need is a soft breach, and hold a long line of sight through from VIP into the site that way. Then you can actually support your players who are trying to push in aggressively from Aqua, and you have a lot more control over the movements that MIBR, as the defenders, can make in there, and their ability to push back on the attackers themselves. That is something the Black Dragons have really lost out on so far. And even though they won that round, it certainly wasn't a clean or decisive win by any means, and could have gone either way by the time that it was in that last 1v1. So to make it more decisive early on, to ensure that you're not losing those players early when they try to push into the site from Aqua, having that extra pressure from the other side of the map maybe could have been a big help.
Is this going to be the start of a little mini comeback here for Black Dragons? Still chance here for them to exit this at an equal 3-3 split. They're attacking once again onto hooker and Billiards. They have just been successful up here. Brought the same lineup. A similar lineup has been brought by MIBR, but this time they have the Mozzie. I don't believe that was something that they brought last time. Focus once again being shown on just trying to force that default plant down, and it makes a lot of sense because you know that you've got the Toxic Babe canisters to get yourself through. Lion Scan coming out, going to result in anything for the time being as Lukid gets rooted in place on 90 elbow. He has been droned there, but he has got something to play off. Wraps with an opener over onto Patoxy. Struggling once again on that entry, and no smokes this time, Geo, if a plant is going to be attempted.
Notice as well how the MIBR have actually put a lot more emphasis over on this side of the map. Philippot's the first casualty, but Hugs shortly afterwards as well. This is really bad for Iron too. I said that it was really important for Black Dragons to take control of VIP, which is what they wanted to do, but MIBR are just instantly set up to deal with that. Yuna might be able to deal with Iron if they can get in the right position, but I'm not overly confident that that's necessarily going to be an option. He's crawling in through and finally finished off by Lukid, and that leaves Yuna and Live on their own.
Well, MIBR have responded and said that round was merely a fluke, Black Dragons, and you will not be getting another, as they come out with a really powerful 2-minute performance here. Yuna and Live left to try and find any sort of peak or entry, and the time being with the way that MIBR are playing, they're just playing so patiently. Reduct has angles on in as well, and they're playing a very aggressive defensive. They could have quite easily backed themselves off, but Lukid says, no, we're going to go for these kills. We have a man count advantage, we have a hell of a round count advantage, and I fancy these final two.
So I actually really like that round because it makes me feel smart. At the start of the round, I was talking about how I really wanted to see Black Dragons have more emphasis over from the VIP side, which is what they did. But what MIBR did is they foresaw that, and they deliberately set up a defense that would be able to shut that down. They'd opened the long lines of sight through the soft walls into VIP. They also had a reinforced panel on the eastmost panel of the VIP wall, and what that does is it protects the player who is playing at 90, which in this case was Lukid on the Mozzie. Now, they originally had a shield that was facing towards Billiards that they could have played behind if it had transpired the Black Dragons were going to attack from that side of the map instead. But what they did was they turned the shield around once they realized the push was coming in through and from VIP Hall of Fame area. So immediately they had these two lines of sight that were being held very strongly onto VIP and VIP window that were protected by either a reinforcement or a shield respectively. That would have made it so hard to clear those defenders out for Black Dragons. Now, by that point, they continued to commit to their pushing through. Iron got downed. Yuna was there as well, the player 2 who had come in through Hall of Fame, although I can't remember who exactly it was. When Iron actually got finished off, it left just 2 of them. And at that point, you can't entirely change the way you're approaching your attack. And you certainly don't have many options for being able to clear out those 2 really key defenders, particularly in the time remaining. So really smart from MIBR to see kind of into the future and predict that that was going to happen and have a setup that would have been so adaptable in the mid-round anyway.
Luke is stepping up in a big way and obviously feeling himself here as he moves over onto the Vigil. He just seems to be progressing through those fragging operators on the defensive side, and he's arguably reached the S tier there with Vigil. The K1A, obviously this SMG that Vigil has and the ability to hide out from drones to a degree. Still choosing to bring the Mozzie. And it looks as though MIBR are just starving Black Dragons for information. 7 drones remaining, 6 as I say that. 3 of them, of course, in pocket, but that's not a great deal of intel to go off. Sure, you've got the Lion, but that's only useful if players are choosing to move. Felipox. Oh, what a bait there from Felipox. He played the odds and they worked out in his favor. He had an inkling that that could be an Iana clone. We don't often see those surviving and not getting shot. And obviously the clone just had no idea that he was there. Live might be fuming at that one. Hugs comes in with a trade, but damage has now been done. As a battle will rage inside of security.
Oh, no.
Raps drawing for the pistol, finds one. Can he grab the second? Yes, he can! Redok comes in with a headshot onto Ion. Patoxy with a trade from that Iana. And that dreadful miss drone on the clone earlier has left him in the 1 versus 2. There's an eternity of time here. Over a minute remains. Plenty of information as well. Although he doesn't have any drones himself, there are still a couple of drones out there on the map. Now, he's attacking onto Kitchen. He's got a long way to go. Fowls and Reduct have backed right off. They've got themselves into the site, and of course, Fowls still has toxic babe canisters.
You can tell the way that he's face checking as well, that even though they have drones out on the field, they're not necessarily placed around that sunrise blue area where his teammates can feed the information in from him. Unfortunately, we don't know where the drones are, but you can just tell that Patoxy is playing quite carefully and a bit unsure of where the location of these defenders are. He does have to move in towards the site. After all, that is where he has to plant or at least get those kills. The toxic babe canisters being expended by the smoke, and he's just trying to take a couple of shots in through to service. There's a C4, I think, that came out. Patoxy's taking a ton of damage. Eventually is removed from the game by a Reduct. And MIBR have a pretty dominant first half.
A battle there that raged on the office side. It started with a miss drone on the clone, and it ended there with MIBR taking the round. Another 5-1 split here, Gio, on Coastline. It's pretty reminiscent of the first game that we saw of the night, when we saw Furia doing very well on this map as well. And MIBR following in those footsteps. They've given themselves a good chance here at converting this game nice and quickly, and it would follow a trend. I think we've got the replay of what happened on the screen now. It was back and forth stuff, but the player of the moment, I guess, was Raps, as 2 kills with the pistol there, just having no other option but to draw for it. The air jab saving him for a time, but tough stuff.
It was the trying to get a kill onto him from behind and then realizing you have to reload, but by that point you've already got his attention. So just trying to hide behind the desk in security, and then Raps comes through with a double pistol kill. Not great. Really bad timing there, to be perfectly honest. If you're Black Dragons, that would have hurt my pride for sure if it had been me in that situation. Not ideal, but maybe the defense is going to give Black Dragons a new lease of life. They've already set up a lot of their site as they come here to Hookah. I'm really interested how on the pink wall they have electrified and reinforced 3 of the 4 panels, but actually straight up opened what looks to be a rotate hole in the 4th. Now, a lot of, at least historically, a lot of attackers will play from the roof, and whether they try and open up that wall or gain a line of sight in from it, the roof can be a powerful place to play. But I suppose you can also get a line of sight the other way. What it also could facilitate is literally a rotate. If Black Dragons want to have the ability to go down below in a rotate that maybe the attackers aren't going to be controlling, get a flank that the attackers aren't expecting, it could turn out to be a really big brain play. It's just risky.
Yeah, it's a decision we've seen a couple of teams make so far. It was something we saw in the first game of the night. I can't remember which team it was that did it, but that panel just being left soft, I'm not sure, as you say, is it to provide the rotation? Is it because there's not really a good angle that you can get from a roof and a reinforcement's more beneficial elsewhere? Black Dragons choosing to make that same decision here.
I think what's interesting, sorry, I was going to say what's interesting to me about that, though, is in the first game of the night, it was just a soft panel, and it was over on the right-hand side. This time, it's straight up a rotate hole, and it's on the left-hand side. So there are actually different panels altogether, which is, like, it's intriguing because it's the same kind of idea, but executed differently.
I'd argue that this one's the one to leave soft, though, because the other one is directly into that sort of smoke spot. So it kind of makes sense to leave the panel that Black Dragons have left soft here. I'd like to see if they do try and use it. Redux going to aggressively push on in. He seems fairly fearless. He might have some sort of intel on this. Live's going to shut down for Leapox. Smoke does get tossed on out. Redux finding some sort of trade. He's got himself all the way into Sofas. He's going nuclear. He finds himself a triple. Patoxy desperately trying to scramble his way back onto site as the last defender alive. As Live is, of course, down. Diffuser has been recovered. The final kill onto Live will be locked. And Patoxy is left to try and retake. 1 versus 3. 45 seconds to go, and the plant has already gone down here for MIBR. They are looking so decisive here on attack. Such conviction in the way that they are moving. Patoxy in a tough spot. Won't have too much information. Maybe a Maestro camera to give him some sort of an inkling, but we're not seeing any Z pings here, so you can assume that he's going in pretty blind. Someone that isn't blind, though, is Redux, as he says, I fancy 4 kills in this round, guys. I'm just going to swing on this last one and grab you the intel. He gets downed in the process, but it matters not.
Even without Jaeger being banned out, Patoxy was kind of doomed to struggle at the end of that round. This puts MIBR on match point. Now, remember what we said at the start. All they need is to win this, and they are guaranteed to be in the Copa Elite 6. Well, they are 1 round away from that. Black Dragons, meanwhile, how'd you win against Team Liquid yesterday and are struggling this bad today against MIBR, who, respectively, looked quite weak yesterday? It's wild to me. It is absolutely crazy. Black Dragons really need to pull it out here on their defense if they are to have any hope, and then they would have to win in overtime as well. Very, very tall monolith, I think, is right in front of them, especially with how well MIBR seem to be playing, and very disciplined too. Now, moving on to the next site, it's going to be Kitchen. Already, I'm going to predict that they're going to have a lot of vertical to deal with because MIBR are running both a buck and a sledge, which suggests they want to be opening up a lot above the site, not necessarily going to focus predominantly on a sunrise take.
You do start to wonder if Black Dragons just had their eyes so firmly set on Counter-Strike and Liquid on Oregon that they kind of weren't fully prepared, or as well prepared as they could be for this game here. And there's only so much prep that you can do in, you know, sort of less than a 24-hour period since MIBR played on this map. So could be something that they've maybe overlooked in a way. But MIBR are righting a lot of the wrongs that we saw them commit yesterday on this map, and they've really come out and given us a reason to say, yes, you know, MIBR can effectively play here on Coastline. And they've done just exactly that so far. Now they're going to be now they're going to be attacking onto Kitchen and Service. We haven't seen attacks go very well here historically tonight, but that could all be about to change. Leapox with an opener over onto Live, quickly removing the mute. and already having Sunrise control. We're hearing smokes getting tossed out. Lukin's already got hugs, and he's already got himself in the site. What is going on here from Black Dragons? The kills continue to come on in. Patoxy, he's out there on the roam. He's not even going to find the first. Gets shut down by Felipox. It's going to be GG's MIBR.
I'll be honest, I feel like I blinked and that round was over. That was incredibly fast. And I think it probably took Black Dragons by surprise as well. MIBR looking like a completely different team to what they were yesterday. And most importantly, now have guaranteed themselves the qualification into the Copa Elite 6. Really good performance from them today on Coastline, and a really promising improvement from what we saw yesterday, showing that